what's the difference between British accent, American accent, and Canadian accent, even Australian accent? Which accent is most preferable for students? I mean, we are so confused. We are non-native speakers, so which accent is most preferable, and why?
Well, I think that. Hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well, and you?
I'm also doing well. Thank you for asking. So, where are you from, ma'am?
I'm from Arizona in the United States. And you?
About me, I'm from India, Kolkata.
Excellent. What's your name?
My name is Amit, and so what's your name, ma'am?
My name is Irandeli.
Okay, sounds great. So, what do you do? Like, are you a teacher only, or do you do any another job?
I'm a kindergarten teacher and I am an online teacher.
Okay, yeah, sounds great. What's the difference between British accent, American accent, and Canadian accent, even Australian accent? Which accent is most preferable for students? I mean, we are so confused. We are non-native speakers, so which accent is most preferable, and why?
Well, I think that depends on the person. I can't say like my accent is better, British accent is better. I can say one thing. Um, Actually, in my opinion, I think Canadian accent is like the easiest to comprehend because they don't have like how do you say, like British accents, they change their tone of voice a lot. So they say like hello and mum. This can be sometimes confusing to foreigners. In the US, we're pretty neutral, but there are some states who talk like Texas, for example, like hello y'all, what you been doing? And like, so that accent is also a little difficult for foreigners. I think the most neutral would be Canadian. Australian is also a little difficult. Yeah, I think the easiest would be Canadian in my opinion, just because of the tone of voice.
That sounds good. So, what should we do, especially non-native speaker? What should we learn for which accent? Is it better? I mean, you said your Canadian accent is to understand. So, should we learn about Canadian accent, or it's depend on person to person what they interested in?
Well, like I mentioned, it depends. Like, if you're teaching just beginner students, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think Canadian or neutral American. Like, I think my accent is pretty neutral. I don't have like a cowboy kind of thing. Um, so it can be like a neutral American accent or Canadian. But I personally think British and Australian are too difficult for beginners.
Especially, you're right, ma'am. Yeah, I feel the same way. Whenever I talk to British teachers, I couldn't able to understand clearly all the words sometimes. And whenever I talk to like US and Canadian teacher, so it's a little edgy, I think. So you already mentioned about all the things.
What other questions do you have?
Yeah, it's really confusing for me. Like not only for me, it's also for all other students, especially non-native students, those are learning English, and especially from Southeast Asia. I'm from India, so most of the Indians prefer to go others country for maybe job purpose, education purpose. So in that case, they're really confused. Which accent is more better? There is some conflict between. Some people are saying like that we have to follow British accent, and some people are saying like that you have to follow American accent or even Canadian accent. So we're really confused about that. So that's why I feel like that. Let's ask to teacher. So what recommend us? So that's why I'm asking
Actually,
that question to you.
like I
Mhm.
said, I cannot tell you exactly like learn this, but I can be realistic and say, okay, so we have some neutral accents and we have some accents that are a little difficult. But I have noticed that if you talk and ask a British person or teacher, they will say British is the best. You have to learn British. They
Yeah,
always say
yeah.
this. And I mean, it's not true. And I'll tell you why. Because, yeah, British English you will use in England. But if you go anywhere else in the world, they understand the American English just to
Exactly.
communicate. yeah, they use American English. Most people do not learn the British English. So, British English you will use just in England,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Mhm.
American English if you go to, like anywhere, even in Asia, or if you go to, like Ireland, or even South American countries, they learn the American English. So when you try to speak to them in like the British, they're going to be like, just like you are trying to understand the British. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly, ma'am. So what about Hollywood movies? I mean, Hollywood movies, especially Hollywood movies, dialogue is very hard to understand. It's not easy. So what kind of accent they followed? They also followed American accent, I think, Hollywood movies dialogues. So what about that?
most American movies have, like you mentioned, just the American accent. It's really weird to see like movies with the British accent, to be honest, unless they're like movies from England or the UK. So I think it's the easiest way to go. And Canadian is almost the same as American. That's why I say it's like better, Canadian or American.
I'm really fond of American accent, so that's why. So, what do you feel about my accent? Is it American or British or which accent I'm full? I'm not sure that actually I speak in my country's accent, my Indian accent. So, my accent is clear to you, my words.
You do have a little bit of your country's accent, but you're very clear to me actually, because there are some students that I find it very difficult. Just did everything you were asking me today. So you have a
Okay,
really
ma'am.
good.
Thank you. Thank you.
And would you say that you mentioned that you consider yourself an entrepreneur? So you want to start your own course for learning English. So do you see that as something that you can achieve soon? Like, do you have some things in place already to